In today's video, I'm going to show you our family recipe for a loaf of sourdough bread. I like this recipe because it's easy, it's flexible, and most importantly, it works with my schedule. I make it the night before, I let it proof overnight on a counter, and I bake it in the morning. So for this recipe, we're going to use a sourdough starter. So starter is what makes the dough rise. Think of it as a wild yeast. I fed this starter within 8 hours of baking. This sourdough starter is about 30 years old. So I fed it and it's ready and it's bubbly and it smells yeasty. Really good. So today I have a little helper and she's going to help me bake the bread. You ready, Lucy? Okay. So we're going to use 90 grams of active sourdough starter. To that, I'm going to add 385 grams of lukewarm water, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. If you do not have a dough whisk, you can just use a regular fork. It works just fine. Okay. Comes next, Lucy. What do you think?
Flour?
Yes. Alright, wanna do that? So now we're gonna add 520 grams of regular all-purpose flour. Of salt, okay? So this is a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, that's good. That's good. 2. I add caraway seeds simply because I grew up on a caraway seed bread. I cannot imagine bread without it, but you can omit that. Or you can add rosemary, roasted garlic, or anise seeds, or any seeds that you like. You want to do some? Some? And I don't measure, I just sprinkle it on top. Maybe a little more? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And let's mix it up. And you don't need this dough, you simply mix it up until it holds the somewhat shape. It's going to be a little shaggy, but that is totally fine. So as you can see, the dough is quite shaggy. It will not really hold a shape, but that's perfect. So at this moment, we're going to cover it with a wet towel and let it rest for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the dough is ready to be stretched. So it has been 15 minutes, so the dough is ready to be stretched. For that, I'm going to wet my hands. And I'm simply going to go around the bowl and stretch and fold in the middle. So at this time, I'm going to cover it again with the wet towel, let it rest for 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So after 15 minutes, we're ready to do the second stretch. So after the second stretch, we're going to cover it with a plastic wrap. and a wet towel. And we're going to let it sit on a kitchen counter for at least 8 to 12 hours. So the dough has been sitting on a kitchen counter for 12 hours. Now it's ready for a stretch and fold. Let's check the dough. So the dough will not double in size, but will have a slight dome over here, as you can see, and we can do a test. So I just dip finger in the flour. You see how it springs back fairly easily? That means it's rised enough to be baked. Now if you poke it and it feels firm and doesn't spring back, then most likely it is underproofed, so just let it sit for on a counter for a couple more hours. And if the dough feels quite runny and it's just, you know, does not spring back, then it's overproofed, which is fine. Baked it anyway. I made many overproofed breads. Yeah, I'm going to stretch it. Oh, this is cool. I'm gonna let it fold over itself. And now I'm gonna turn the bowl a little bit and do the same thing. Just another stretch. You can see that it holds shape much better than last night. It's actually kind of cool. And just fold over itself. And I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna let it sit for about 30 seconds before I do another fold. And you can drink your coffee in the 30 seconds. So I think it has been about 30 seconds, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So at this moment, I'm going to cover it and let it sit for 15 minutes before we put it into our proofing basket. Okay, it has been 15 minutes and the dough is ready to be put into a proofing basket. Now I do have this Benetton proofing basket, but you can really use any bowl, any stainless steel or glass bowl that you have available. And usually I do not line it with a parchment paper, but this time I will. Okay. Now I'm going to just flour the dough a little bit on my hands. I'm going to just very gently, so that the air bubbles still stay in there. And I'm not going to do any special folding, anything. I'm simply just going to put the dough right in the basket, just like that. Now at this moment, I put the dough inside the refrigerator for 1 full hour. At the same time, I'm going to put my Dutch oven into the oven and preheat it to 500 degrees for the entire hour while the dough is resting in the refrigerator. Okay, well, it has been an hour, so it's time to bake our bread.